Zara crouched in the alien dirt of Kepler 442 billion, watching her partner Qrex vibrate with excitement over what was probably just another piece of space junk. The insectoid's forearms were gesticulating wildly at his scanner, producing that distinctive chittering sound that meant he'd either discovered something groundbreaking or found another rusty bolt from a cargo freighter. Zara. The energy readings are off the charts. Qrex's compound eyes practically sparkled with scientific fervor. This crash site, it's ancient. Pre-contact ancient. Ancient, Zara said, not bothering to look up from her own equipment. After 3 years working for the Galactic Archaeological Survey, she'd learned that ancient could mean anything from last Tuesday to the heat death of the previous universe, depending on which species was doing the dating. Approximately 4,000 standard years. That predates human space travel by millennia. Now that got her attention. Zara stood up, brushing purple dust off her knees and trying not to think about how this planet's twin suns made everything look like a bad Instagram filter. 4,000 years? Qrex, that's impossible. Humans were still figuring out combustion engines 4,000 years ago. The readings don't lie. Qrex scuttled over to a twisted piece of metallic debris, his scanner practically screaming with excitement. Look at this energy signature. It's definitely of human origin, but the temporal dating is irrefutable. Zara walked over to examine the wreckage. It looked like someone had taken a luxury yacht and introduced it to a particularly angry asteroid field. Chunks of hull plating were scattered across the landing site, along with what appeared to be fragments of some kind of entertainment system. Nothing particularly ancient about it, except for the thick layer of crystallized sediment that had formed over everything. Maybe your scanner needs recalibrating, she suggested, knowing full well that Qrex had probably recalibrated it 17 times already this morning. The little guy was nothing if not thorough. Already done. 3 times. The temporal radiation from this planet's core creates unique isotopic signatures that allow for extremely precise dating. This wreckage has been here for exactly 4,237 standard years. Right. Zara picked up a piece of debris and turned it over in her hands. It looked suspiciously like part of a drink holder. And what exactly were these ancient humans doing out here in their time-traveling pleasure craft? Before Qrex could launch into one of his theoretical dissertations, something caught Zara's eye. Half buried under a twisted piece of hull plating was a rectangular object with a distinctly familiar shape. She brushed away the accumulated grime and stared at what was unmistakably a smartphone. A human smartphone, with a cracked screen protector. Qrex, she said slowly, when exactly did humans develop mobile communication devices? Approximately 250 standard years ago, according to the historical records. Why do you ask? Zara held up the phone. Because unless ancient humans were way more advanced than we thought, we've got ourselves a genuine mystery. Qrex's antennae nearly bent themselves into knots as he processed what he was seeing. That's impossible. The dating is accurate. I've triple-checked everything. Well, either your scanner is broken, or we just found evidence that humans were texting their way across the galaxy while the rest of the species were still learning to make fire. Zara turned the phone over in her hands, noting that despite its apparent age, it was in remarkably good condition. And knowing humans, both options are equally plausible. She pressed the power button out of habit, not expecting anything to happen. The screen remained black, which was probably for the best. The last thing she needed was to accidentally activate some kind of ancient human doomsday device disguised as social media. We need to report this immediately, Qrex chittered, already reaching for his communication device. This could revolutionize our understanding of human technological development. Or Zara said, pocketing the phone, but it could be another bureaucratic nightmare that ends with us filling out forms in triplicate while some desk jockey on Central Station decides whether this constitutes a Class 3 historical anomaly or a Class 4 temporal paradox. She looked around the crash site one more time, noting the scattered debris and the way the planet's unique geology had preserved everything in crystalline formations. Something about this whole situation felt off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what. Come on, she said, shouldering her equipment pack. Let's get this stuff back to the ship and run some proper analysis. And Qrex? Maybe don't mention the time travel angle in your initial report. You know how excitable the brass gets about temporal anomalies. As they walked back toward their survey vessel, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was going to make her life significantly more complicated. In her experience, mysterious human artifacts from impossible time periods were never just mysterious human artifacts from impossible time periods. They were always something much, much worse. Commander Qrex Cole arrived with all the subtlety of a supernova and twice the dramatic flair. His Zentaurian battlecruiser descended from orbit like a mechanical angel of bureaucratic warfare, complete with flashing lights and what Zara was pretty sure was unnecessary laser show choreography. Citizens of the Archaeological Survey, Cole announced as he strode down his ship's ramp, his crystalline carapace gleaming in the twin suns. I have been dispatched to investigate reports of a potential temporal incursion that may threaten the stability of the galactic timeline. It's a phone, Qrex, Zara said flatly. A human phone. From a crashed ship. Nobody's threatening anything except my patience. A phone that predates known human technology by millennia. Cole's voice carried the kind of dramatic weight usually reserved for declaring war or ordering the last slice of pizza. Such an artifact could indicate the presence of rogue time travelers, ancient human sleeper agents, or worse, a previously unknown human empire that has been secretly manipulating galactic history. Qrex, who had been running analysis on the phone for the past 6 hours, looked up from his workstation with the expression of someone who had been staring into the abyss and found it mildly disappointing. Commander, I've completed the preliminary data extraction. The device contains approximately 12,000 photos, most of which appear to be of food, and what the human database classifies as selfies. Selfies could be code, Cole declared, striking a pose that would have looked impressive if he weren't addressing a piece of consumer electronics. Ancient human intelligence agencies were known for their cunning. Were they, though? Zara asked, taking the phone from Qrex and scrolling through the image gallery. Because most of these pictures are of someone's breakfast burrito, and I'm pretty sure this one is just a cat wearing tiny sunglasses. Before Qrex could launch into a lecture about the strategic importance of breakfast documentation, their archaeological camp was blessed with yet another visitor. Professor Elmo Grizelda emerged from a transport shuttle that looked like it had been held together with hope and questionable life choices. I came as soon as I received word, the elderly human announced, his wild white hair making him look like he'd been struck by lightning while having an epiphany. An ancient human artifact. This proves everything I've been saying about pre-contact human space exploration. Professor Grizelda, Zara said with the tone of someone who had heard this particular theory before. Humans didn't have space travel 4,000 years ago. We barely had indoor plumbing. That's what they want you to think. Grizelda pulled out a battered tablet and began scrolling through what appeared to be decades of accumulated conspiracy theories. I've been researching this for 30 years. The evidence has always been there, hidden in plain sight. Qrex tentatively raised one of his 4 hands. What evidence exactly? Ancient cave paintings showing flying vehicles, stone carvings that look suspiciously like star maps. And now, irrefutable proof in the form of a genuine pre-contact human communication device. Zara looked down at the phone, which was currently displaying a TikTok video of someone doing an elaborate dance routine in what appeared to be a spaceship bathroom. I'm pretty sure this isn't what you think it is, Professor. The sophistication is remarkable, Grizelda continued, completely ignoring her. Look at the advanced touch interface, the high-resolution display, the complex software architecture. This represents technology that supposedly wouldn't be developed for thousands of years. Or Zara said, it represents technology that was developed exactly when we think it was, and something very weird is happening with the dating. Commander Cole leaned over to examine the phone's display, where the TikTok video was now showing someone attempting to eat cereal while doing a handstand. These could be training videos for zero-gravity combat maneuvers. That's just someone being stupid on the internet, Zara replied. A cover story. Ancient humans were masters of misdirection. Qrex's antennae drooped with the weight of having to process this level of logical gymnastics. I've run the temporal analysis 17 times. The dating is consistent. This device has been on this planet for over 4,000 years. Which is impossible, Zara pointed out. Unless it isn't. Professor Grizelda was practically vibrating with excitement. Unless ancient humans developed space travel millennia before official records indicate. Unless they were already exploring the galaxy while other species were still discovering fire. Or unless something is wrong with our dating methods, Zara suggested, but she could already see that train of thought derailing before it left the station. Commander Cole struck another dramatic pose. I'm declaring this site a potential galactic security risk. No one else enters or leaves until we determine the scope of this temporal anomaly. It's not a temporal anomaly, Zara said. It's probably just a calibration error. That's exactly what someone involved in a temporal conspiracy would say. Cole replied with the smug satisfaction of someone who had just solved a puzzle that existed only in his own mind. As if to punctuate the growing absurdity of the situation, the phone in Zara's hands suddenly chimed with a notification sound that was jauntily incongruous with the gravity of their supposedly universe-threatening discovery. Everyone stared at the device in stunned silence. Did it just, Qrex began. Yeah, Zara said. It just did. The phone screen had lit up, displaying what was unmistakably a social media notification. Brittany _marketing liked your post. Professor Grizelda nearly fainted with excitement. It's receiving transmissions across time. The ancient human communication network is still active. Commander Cole immediately began barking orders into his communicator about potential temporal incursions and the need for immediate backup. Zara just stared at the phone and wondered how her peaceful career in space archaeology had suddenly turned into the universe's dumbest conspiracy theory. The phone coming to life changed everything, and nothing simultaneously. Within minutes, Qrex had connected it to their analysis systems and was streaming its contents to their workstation displays, while Commander Cole paced around the camp like a caged predator who had been given way too much caffeine. The device is accessing what appears to be a vast network of interconnected human communication nodes, Qrex reported, his voice carrying the strain of someone trying to remain scientific while watching his worldview collapse in real time. The data streams include textual communications, visual media, and something called Instagram stories. Social media, Zara said, recognizing the interface layouts from her own phone. It's just social media. From about 6 years ago, judging by the app versions. But Professor Grizelda was having none of it. Don't you see? This proves that ancient humans had developed not just space travel, but galaxy-spanning communication networks. They were operating on a scale we never imagined. The phone screen was now displaying what was clearly a TikTok account belonging to someone named Chad Brickman. His profile picture showed a young man with perfectly styled hair, designer sunglasses, and the kind of smile that suggested he had never encountered a genuine hardship in his life. Chad_Brickman_official, Zara read from the screen. Followed by, wow, 12 followers. This ancient human empire wasn't exactly going viral. Qrex was scrolling through Chad's post history with the fascination of an anthropologist studying a completely alien culture. His content appears to focus primarily on what he terms lifestyle goals and epic adventures. Also, there are multiple videos of him performing something called dabbing. Dabbing? Commander Cole leaned over to examine the screen. Is this some form of ancient human combat technique? Zara watched as Chad's video showed him extending one arm while tucking his face into the crook of his other elbow, usually while standing in front of expensive-looking vehicles or exotic locations. No Qrex, it's just dabbing. It was a dance move, a really stupid dance move. Ancient humans had developed complex ritual movement patterns. Professor Grizelda was frantically taking notes. This could represent a form of ceremonial communication with their space-faring ancestors. Qrex's compound eyes were starting to twitch, which in his species indicated either extreme excitement or an imminent nervous breakdown. But how did ancient humans know about dabbing if dabbing wasn't invented until recently? This creates a paradox that could theoretically unravel the causal structure of space-time itself. Or Zara said, scrolling through more of Chad's posts. Maybe our dating is wrong and this guy crashed here last week. Before anyone could respond to this radical suggestion, Commander Cole's military scanner started beeping with alarming urgency. I'm detecting additional human artifacts in the immediate vicinity. This site may be more extensive than initially believed. Sure enough, a more thorough search of the crash site revealed a treasure trove of what Professor Grizelda immediately declared to be artifacts of the ancient human empire. These included a half-eaten protein bar with an expiration date from 6 months ago, a pair of designer sunglasses that looked like they'd been purchased at a space station gift shop, and what appeared to be a parking ticket from the Kepler Station Municipal Spaceport. Remarkable. Grizelda held up the parking ticket like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls. Ancient humans had developed sophisticated systems of civil administration, traffic regulation, municipal governance. Professor, Zara said gently, that parking ticket is dated 3 weeks ago. Carbon dating is unreliable for recent artifacts, Grizelda dismissed. The temporal radiation on this planet could be affecting the isotopic decay rates. Commander Cole, meanwhile, had gone into full military alert mode. I'm declaring this site a potential weapons cache. The presence of multiple artifacts suggests this could be a forward operating base for ancient human military forces. It's a crashed pleasure yacht, Zara said, examining what was clearly a piece of decorative hull plating with Party Harder Ivy emblazoned in gaudy chrome letters. Look, you can still see part of the ship's name. Obviously a cover identity. Cole was now speaking into his communicator with the urgency of someone reporting an imminent alien invasion. Command, I need immediate backup. We may be dealing with a Class 1 temporal incursion involving pre-contact human military assets. Qrex had managed to access more of Chad's social media accounts and was scrolling through his post history with growing bewilderment. According to his Facebook profile, Chad Brickman was a lifestyle influencer and space exploration enthusiast who recently purchased his own exploration vessel to become the first human space influencer. A cover story to hide his true mission, Professor Grizelda declared. His true mission appears to have been impressing someone named Brittany from marketing, Zara said, reading over Qrex's shoulder. Judging by his final posts, she wasn't responding to his messages, and he was getting increasingly desperate for attention. The evidence was mounting that Chad Brickman was less ancient human-time warrior and more rich kid with poor impulse control. But the rest of the team seemed determined to ignore the obvious explanation in favor of increasingly elaborate conspiracy theories. I'm calling in Zine archaeological specialists, Commander Cole announced, and temporal mechanics experts, and probably a few military psychologists to help us understand the mindset of these ancient human operatives. Zara looked around at the crash site, with its scattered debris, expired snack foods, and growing collection of alien bureaucrats who were all absolutely convinced they had stumbled onto the discovery of the century. She was starting to suspect that the universe had a deeply twisted sense of humor. The phone in her hands chimed again with another notification. This time it was from Chad's Instagram account, new post from 6 months ago, about to embark on the most epic space adventure ever. Going to make history. Hashtag space influencer, hashtag living my best life, hashtag Brittany please call me back. Yeah, the universe definitely had a twisted sense of humor. The breakthrough came when Qrex, in a fit of scientific desperation, decided to run a comparative analysis of the crash site's temporal radiation signatures against the planetary geological database. What he found made his antennae curl into small, frustrated spirals. Zara, he said quietly, in the tone of someone who had just discovered that reality was far more disappointing than fiction, I need to show you something. She walked over to his workstation, where he had overlaid the temporal dating results with atmospheric radiation readings from the past standard year. The correlation was unmistakable. The temporal radiation fields on this planet fluctuate seasonally, Qrex explained, his voice carrying the weight of crushed scientific dreams. During certain atmospheric conditions, they can artificially age any object by several thousand years within a matter of months. Zara stared at the data for a long moment. So you're telling me that Chad's crashed party yacht has been sitting here for exactly 6 months, but the radiation made our equipment think it was ancient? That appears to be correct, yes. And all of our dating equipment is essentially useless on this planet? Worse than useless. It's actively misleading. They both turned to look at where Commander Cole was dramatically gesturing at the crash site, while speaking into his communicator about ancient human strategic installations, and where Professor Grizelda was carefully cataloging Chad's scattered belongings as artifacts of a lost civilization. "Should we tell them?" Qrex asked. Before Zara could answer, her tablet chimed with an incoming data transfer. Chad's phone had finished uploading his complete social media history, and the picture it painted was magnificently mundane. Chad Brickman, age 24, heir to a shipping fortune, had purchased a barely functional pleasure craft called Party Harder IV with the express intention of becoming famous as the galaxy's first lifestyle influencer. His final weeks of posts told a story of increasing desperation and decreasing common sense. Videos of him attempting to modify his ship's navigation systems with parts ordered online. Photos of him posing with equipment he clearly didn't understand. And a final live stream from 6 months ago titled Epic Space Adventure begins now, going where no influencer has gone before. The live stream was a masterpiece of cosmic irony. Chad, wearing the same designer sunglasses they'd found in the wreckage, had attempted to document his departure from Kepler Station while simultaneously trying to pilot an unfamiliar spacecraft, respond to comments from his 12 followers, and maintain his perfectly styled hair and zero gravity. "Okay guys, so we're about to jump to hyperspace," Chad had announced to his camera, apparently unaware that his ship's navigation computer was flashing warning messages in 3 different languages. "This is going to be so epic. Brittany, if you're watching this, I'm literally exploring uncharted space for you, babe." The stream had ended abruptly when Chad's ship dropped out of hyperspace in completely the wrong system, its engines immediately failing due to what appeared to be a catastrophic interaction between bargain basement modifications and basic physics. "He crashed because he was trying to live stream while piloting," Zara said, watching the final moments of Chad's space adventure. "He literally died because he couldn't put down his phone long enough to fly straight." Qrex had pulled up the spacecraft registration records. The Party Harder IV was registered as exploration vessel, but was actually a Class C pleasure yacht with no deep space certification. Its maximum safe operating distance from port was approximately 12 parsecs. "And how far is this planet from the nearest port?" 47 parsecs. Zara closed her eyes and tried to process the sheer magnitude of Chad's overconfidence. So he bought a ship that wasn't designed for deep space, modified it with parts he didn't understand, flew it 3 times farther than it was rated for. All while trying to become internet famous to impress someone who apparently worked in marketing. That appears to be an accurate summary, yes. The evidence was overwhelming. Chad Brickman wasn't an ancient human time traveler or a secret operative from a lost civilization. He was just a rich kid who had made spectacularly poor life choices and paid the ultimate price for his combination of unlimited resources and limited judgment. But when Zara tried to explain this to Commander Cole, he responded with a kind of military paranoia that suggested he had been trained to never accept simple explanations when complex conspiracies were available. "Obviously, that's what they want us to think," Cole declared after reviewing the evidence. "The whole lifestyle influencer persona is clearly an elaborate cover story. No one could be that genuinely stupid and still acquire an interstellar spacecraft." "Have you met humans?" Zara asked. Ancient human intelligence agencies were legendary for their sophisticated psychological operations, Professor Grizelda added, apparently having decided that Chad's obvious incompetence was actually proof of his advanced training. Creating a convincing false identity as a frivolous social media personality would be exactly the kind of misdirection they would employ. Qrex's antennae had now tied themselves into what looked like a hangman's noose. But the evidence clearly indicates that this individual was exactly what he appeared to be, a wealthy young human with poor judgment who died in a completely preventable accident. "That's what makes it such a perfect cover," Cole insisted. Zara looked around at the crash site, where the truth was scattered in plain sight for anyone willing to see it. Chad's final selfie stick, his expired protein bars, his designer sunglasses, his parking ticket from what was clearly a rushed departure from Kepler Station 6 months ago. Sometimes, she realized, the universe's sense of humor wasn't twisted at all. Sometimes it was perfectly straightforward. Sometimes the most ordinary explanation was also the most ridiculous. The situation went from ridiculous to galactically absurd when Commander Cole's backup arrived. Not just one ship, but an entire task force of Zentaurian military vessels, accompanied by a media flotilla that had apparently been monitoring military communications for exactly this kind of story. Citizens of the galaxy, announced reporter Vex Shiny Thorax from the bridge of the CSS Sensationalist. We're here above the mysterious planet Kepler 442 billion, where evidence of ancient human time travelers has reportedly been discovered. We go now to our field correspondent, Zilix BuzzFeed, who is standing by with exclusive coverage of what military sources are calling the discovery of the millennium. Zara stood in the middle of the crash site, watching alien news drones circle overhead like particularly annoying vultures, while Chad's phone continued to ping with social media notifications from 6 months ago. The irony was so thick you could have cut it with a plasma torch. "This is insane," she muttered to Qrex, who was curled up under a piece of wreckage in what appeared to be a full defensive posture. "We're literally surrounded by evidence that this guy was just an idiot with a death wish, and somehow the entire galaxy is convinced he was part of some ancient human conspiracy." The media outlets are reporting that Chad Brickman was potentially the advanced scout for a secret human empire that has been operating in deep space for millennia, Qrex replied, his voice muffled by his hiding spot. "One of them is speculating that humans might have been the original builders of the hyperspace network." Based on what evidence? His TikTok account had a video where he dabbed in front of a hyperspace relay station. Zara pulled up the video in question. Chad, wearing his signature sunglasses and that insufferable smile, was indeed performing his ridiculous dance move in front of what was clearly just a tourist viewing platform at a hyperspace hub. The video's caption read, "Dabbing my way across the galaxy. Next stop, making history. Hashtag space influencer, hashtag epic adventure, hashtag please notice me." He was literally documenting a tourist trip, she said. He probably bought a package tour. But the truth was apparently far less interesting than the fiction. Professor Grizelda had somehow managed to get himself interviewed by 3 different news networks, and explaining his theories about ancient human space exploration to increasingly credulous alien audiences. "The sophistication of their psychological warfare is remarkable," he was saying to a Regellian reporter. "Notice how they created an entire false persona, complete with social media accounts, consumer purchases, and even fabricated personal relationships. The attention to detail suggests a level of planning that spans decades, possibly centuries." Meanwhile, Chad's actual social media was painting a very different picture. His Instagram story from 6 months ago showed his last-minute shopping trip for space adventure supplies, which had apparently consisted mainly of hair gel, protein bars, and what appeared to be a decorative compass that he'd bought because it looked spacey. His final post on every platform had been variations of the same desperate plea, "Brittany, I know you're probably busy with that marketing campaign, but I'm literally going to space to prove how serious I am about us. Please call me back. I'm going to be famous and we can be famous together." Zara had managed to track down Brittany through Chad's contact list. Brittany Martinez, Senior Marketing Coordinator at Kepler Station Commercial Development, had agreed to a brief interview via subspace communication. "Chad? Oh my God, is he okay?" Brittany had asked when Zara explained the situation. "I heard he bought some kind of spaceship, but I thought he was just showing off again. We went on like 3 dates, and he kept talking about how he was going to be the next big thing in space exploration. I thought he meant like a documentary series or something." "Did you encourage his space travel plans?" "Are you kidding?" I told him it sounded dangerous and expensive and kind of stupid. But Chad never listened to anyone about anything. His family has money, so he just assumed everything would work out because it always had before. "And you never called him back?" "He kept sending me these weird videos of him dancing in spaceports. It was kind of creepy, honestly. I was hoping he'd take the hint and move on." The interview was interrupted by news alerts from across the galaxy. The story of the ancient human time warriors had taken on a life of its own. Rigelian scientists were calling for emergency sessions of the Galactic Council. Zentaurian military analysts were revising their estimates of human technological capabilities. 3 different alien civilizations had preemptively filed diplomatic protests about humanity's secret historical manipulations. Commander Cole, drunk on media attention and military paranoia, was holding press conferences every few hours to update the galaxy on the developing temporal crisis. His latest theory involved Chad being part of a human sleeper cell that had been activated by unknown alien forces to destabilize galactic civilization. The evidence clearly indicates a sophisticated operation spanning millennia, he announced to a gathering of reporters. The subject's apparent incompetence is obviously an elaborate psychological cover designed to make us underestimate the scope of the threat. In the background of the press conference, Zara could see Chad's crashed ship, its hull still displaying the chrome letters spelling out Party Harder IV. Scattered around it were his belongings, expired snack foods, designer accessories, and a selfie stick that had apparently been his final companion. The universe's sense of humor, she decided, was not twisted at all. It was perfectly, crystallinely clear. The most ordinary person imaginable had become the center of the galaxy's most elaborate conspiracy theory, simply because no one could believe that reality was actually as stupid as it appeared to be. Chad's phone chimed again. Another notification from 6 months ago. Your live stream epic space adventure begins now. Has been viewed 47 times. 47 views. Chad had died for 47 views from an audience that had probably been watching ironically. The universe definitely had a sense of humor. It was just really, really dark. They found Chad's body exactly where physics and common sense suggested it would be, in the pilot's seat of his crashed ship, still strapped in, still wearing his designer sunglasses, and still clutching his selfie stick in a death grip that suggested his final moments had been spent trying to document his own demise. The official cause of death, according to the medical examiner's report, was catastrophic decompression due to hull breach caused by operator error during uncontrolled planetary descent. The unofficial cause of death, according to Zara's final report, was terminal stupidity compounded by social media addiction. Subject Chad Brickman died as he lived, she wrote in her official archaeological assessment, trying to get more followers. But the truth, as is often the case in a universe that operates on cosmic irony rather than cosmic justice, was completely irrelevant to what happened next. Despite overwhelming evidence that Chad had been nothing more than a rich kid with a death wish, his story had already taken on a life of its own across the galaxy. The ancient human time warriors had entered galactic folklore with the kind of staying power usually reserved for creation myths and tax codes. Alien children were playing games about mysterious human space travelers. Academic conferences were being held to discuss the implications of humanity's secret historical influence on galactic development. A Rigelian composer had written a symphony called the Chad Brickman Temporal Paradox Suite. Commander Cole, rather than being disciplined for his spectacular overreaction, was promoted to Special Director of Temporal Security and given command of a new task force dedicated to investigating chronological threats to galactic stability. His first official report recommended increased surveillance of human social media accounts, just in case they contained coded messages from other time travelers. Professor Grizelda had become something of a celebrity in xenoarchaeological circles. His book, Hidden Among Us, The Secret History of Ancient Human Space Exploration, was currently #1 on the Zentaurian bestseller list. He was scheduled to give lectures on 6 different worlds over the next month. Qrex had developed a persistent anxiety disorder related to temporal paradoxes and had requested transfer to a nice, simple assignment cataloging geological samples from tectonically stable planets. His final report on the Chad Brickman incident was 300 pages long and concluded with the statement, "Sometimes the universe makes no sense, and that's the most sensible thing about it." As for Zara, she found herself sitting in her ship's pilot seat, looking down at Chad's phone, which had somehow become her responsibility. The device continued to receive notifications from the automated systems of Chad's various social media accounts, ghostly echoes of a digital life that had ended 6 months ago. Most of the notifications were spam, But occasionally something would come through that reminded her that Chad had been a real person with real hopes and real delusions of grandeur. Birthday reminders for friends who probably didn't know he was dead. Promotional offers for hair products he would never use. Invitations to social events he would never attend. And then, just as she was about to power down the device for the final time, it chimed with one last notification. Brittname_marketing liked your post, going to space to prove my love. This is going to be epic. The post was 6 months old. Chad had been dead for 6 months. But apparently social media algorithms existed in their own temporal dimension, where the past could randomly surface in the present for no reason other than the universe's apparent commitment to ironic timing. Zara stared at the notification for a long moment, imagining Chad's reaction if he could somehow know that his desperate final plea for attention had finally, posthumously, received the validation he'd been seeking. She wondered if he would have considered it worth dying for. Probably, she decided. Chad seemed like the kind of person who would have found cosmic irony to be an acceptable substitute for genuine human connection. She powered down the phone and filed her final report with the Galactic Archaeological Survey. Subject was a civilian casualty of his own poor judgment. No evidence of temporal anomalies, ancient conspiracies, or threats to galactic security. Recommend closing case and moving on to actual archaeological discoveries. The report was immediately classified by the Special Director of Temporal Security and buried in a vault on Central Station, where it would remain for the next 50 years while the legend of Chad Brickman continued to grow. Somewhere in the galaxy, alien children were learning about the mysterious human time travelers who had secretly shaped galactic history. Somewhere else, xenoarchaeologists were searching for more evidence of ancient human space exploration. And somewhere in between, marketing coordinators across known space were probably being very, very careful about how they responded to social media messages from admirers. Zara powered up her ship's engines and prepared to leave Kepler 442 billion behind. She had learned something important during her time on this ridiculous planet. The universe did indeed have a sense of humor. It was just that its sense of humor was exactly as stupid as everything else. As her ship broke atmosphere and entered hyperspace, Chad's phone received one final notification. Your post has been shared 50,000 times across the galactic network. Fame at last. Chad Brickman had finally gone viral. He had just needed to die first.